Hi, everyone. It's Evelyn Ackah. Thank you so much for joining us on the Ask Canada Immigration Podcast. I have the pleasure today of having a client and hopefully a new friend on. His name is Mike Frey. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Mike just recently moved to Calgary, and Mike Frey, he's the president of Yellow Basket, which is a technology consulting firm specializing in systems integration, process automation. So I'm going to say that again, that specializes in system integration, process automation, and rescuing runaway technology projects that we all have. Yellow Basket is headquartered in Houston, Texas, and has regional offices in New Jersey and a new office in Calgary. Thanks to working with us. Mike has 30 years experience in business and technology across all major industries, and he has worked in the US, Europe, Central America, and Canada. Mike is a US Army veteran, and he has an MBA from the University of St. Thomas. Welcome again, Mike. Thanks for doing this. I love having clients and business people on our podcast. How are things?
Things are great, other than just starting to get a little chilly here in Calgary.
It is chilly compared to Texas. Oh my God. Yeah, it's I would say in Calgary it's very crisp in the mornings and it gets a little warmer and then it gets crisp again. So you're gonna have to start getting some warm clothes. So tell me, what was the motivation for you to start this business, Yellow Basket, 30 years ago?
Well, it's actually only been about 15 years,
Okay, 15.
yeah, but it's just a continuation of my career in technology. I grew up around computers, just as they were becoming a thing.
Mhm.
Not to date myself, but and then in the Army, I worked with computers, and when I got out of the Army, I took a job with a little company from Seattle called Microsoft.
I
And
think I've heard of them before.
yes, and then shortly after that, got into technology consulting, which I've more or less been in my entire
Mhm.
career. Um, and Yellow Basket actually came out of it was originally a software product that my current partners and I developed and brought to market. But we were getting asked more and more to develop custom solutions and deliver custom projects. And so we said, well, let's give the customers what they want. And so
Mhm.
we switched gears and changed into a technology services firm.
That is so cool. So how many people make up Yellow Basket now? How many
So we're
employees?
now about 20
Great.
between the in the US, we have people all over the US.
Mhm.
We also have an offshore team in Panama City, Panama.
Great.
And now we're building up the office here in Calgary, and hopefully we'll be having some new team members here soon.
That's exciting. Really exciting. So before we get into like more of the challenges of entrepreneurship, what what was the name about? What is Yellow Basket about? Is there something behind it?
Ah,
Because I never found that out when we were
the
doing your work
origin
permit.
story. Yes. Well, one of the software products that we were thinking about bringing to market had a name called Tisket, and I won't go into what that was about, but the name was called Tisket, and you might not believe this, but in Texas, there was actually already a company called Tisket
No.
LLC. So the
Oh.
name was taken, and we said, well, what are we going to name this? And you were just going Tisket a Tasket. Hey, what's the rest of that? Tisket a Tasket, a green and yellow basket. And
Yellow
we thought that would
Basket.
just be a funny name.
Oh,
Uh,
got it. I got it now. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. So when you started your business, 15 years ago, you have this 30-year career. What are some of the key challenges you faced when you were incorporating or thinking, just let's talk about your first business. What were the challenges you faced leaving, let's say, a Microsoft or the other companies you worked at and starting your own?
well, the first consulting firm that I founded, or co-founded, the real thing was just getting our clients.
Yeah.
We had a good team of people with the right skills, um, and it was really going to market at that time. I think I was definitely very inexperienced at being, let's call, a salesperson or a BD person. So
Mhm.
first thing was really just finding clients and getting over that inertia of the first paying gig.
Yeah.
Um, But luckily in that case, we got some fairly big clients very quickly. That was in data warehousing, which was new at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from then on, it got much easier. But it was, navigating new, bringing on new employees,
Yeah.
all the lessons that are learned if you've never had employees before. Um, I always say every good employee manual, every page in it there's a story behind it.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, being in business for yourself, you have to learn a lot of lessons. Sometimes you get stuff from good mentors, but sometimes you just learn them with cuts and scrapes and bruises.
Absolutely. I hear you. I've been there in my 14 years on my own. It's never boring, that's for sure. So can you tell me, give me some samples of like clients you've worked with, obviously not names, but like how your company does this integration, does this automation, helps them problem solve with their technology. And if there's specific programs that you use specifically, share that as well, please.
Yeah, sure. So I think the stuff that we do kind of day to day is a lot around automating business processes or systems integration. And that really just means that you find companies that have, they have one software that runs their inventory and they have one software that runs their accounting, and they don't natively talk to each other.
Mhm.
So they end up shuffling a lot of data around with Excel and, other tools. And so what we can do is come in and make those systems talk to each other and eliminate the excess labor and time that's spent doing really tedious work instead of doing real work.
Mhm.
We do a lot of getting people off of Excel, you know, um, and and then other processes in the business, especially if they're around like data entry or moving data around, we can automate those processes. That's kind of in the sort of everyday stuff. But we also do some stuff that's more exciting and cutting edge technology, either with we've done projects where we've worked with computer vision for drones to figure out where other drones are in the sky.
Wow.
We've done some interesting project with blood chemistry in the medical space. And of course now the topic on everybody's lips is AI and large
AI.
language models, and we've been doing some exploratory stuff into that to see where that's a good fit for market as opposed to just being a shiny new object.
Yeah, I hear you. AI is on everybody's mind right now, and nobody really understands it, I think. I certainly don't. I'm looking at
Mhm.
that as well in terms of law, how we can use it safely, with privacy rules and all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
tell me, as you talk about some of your scrapes and bruises, as the CEO of a business like Yellow Basket, I'm sure you've got some leadership lessons that you've learned along the way. Um, that you could share with somebody like me or even people with less years of experience as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
What would you say are the first two or three things that come to mind around the need for leadership, and what are the lessons that you've learned?
Well, I think, an easy one is that you got to have good people. You got to recruit good people because it starts with that. You can't do everything. Um, and then along those lines, as a manager and a leader, the other thing is resist the temptation to do everything yourself, which
Mhm.
I'm completely guilty of doing. And a mentor of mine once said, delegate, outsource me, and that should be the order of everything,
Mhm.
when you're a leader and a manager.
Yeah.
So, yeah, got to have good people and you got to be able to trust what they do.
That's great. That's really helpful. So when we talk about like the work that you do with the automation, I'd like to understand, how do you think your business can help other businesses who work with you cut costs and increase revenue through technology, through the projects that they would do with you?
Um, just as a general rule, any organization of any size has a lot of waste around what I call just tedious processes, which
Mhm.
are people doing swivel chair accounting, taking data out of one system, putting it into another system. um, or spending an excess amount of time interfacing with their vendors, with their customers, because they're using manual process to do that. You're using a lot of paper,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, and the technology solution to that is integration and automation, to be repetitive, which is
Yes.
figure out ways where we don't have to have someone shuffle paper between places, and we can have the computers do that. Um, because then you can get those people working on much higher value type work
Yeah.
than essentially like clerical type work.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Are there particular programs that I think when you were in the office a while back, you were talking about something that you were, launching and partnering with? I'm not sure. Can you talk about it, or is it
Sure, yeah.
okay?
Yeah, for the most part, we like to consider ourselves fairly agnostic
Yeah.
to technology, meaning that we can come into anywhere, quickly ramp up on whatever particular technology you have in the house. And so we don't come like some firms where they're a Microsoft consulting firm, or they're an Oracle consulting firm, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. We don't really come with a lot of that sort of baggage. Um, but we do have one particular affiliation, which is we are a partner with a company called Odoo,
Yes.
that can be found at odoo.com, odoo.com. It's a funny sounding name. They've actually been around for about 20 years, though. They used to be called OpenERP, and they are an ERP, which is enterprise resource planning,
Mm-hmm.
and a CRM,
Mm-hmm.
customer relationship management.
Yeah.
And it's basically a package that's targeted at small and mid-market businesses, where it has essentially all the pieces you need to run your business. So it has accounting, it has inventory management, it has manufacturing modules, it has every social marketing modules. It's actually got like 80 different modules in it. Um, and we like the product because, again, for that small and mid market, um, cobbling together many different pieces of software to do the same thing becomes very, very expensive.
Yes.
And they do it very, very well, and they do it at a price that's really reasonable, that even small businesses can afford.
That is so great. Oh, I remember when you talked to me, I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds great, because at Ackah Law, we've got so much different technology we use, and we have to use technology like Zapier and other kinds of
Yep.
connectivity to get them to work together. So do you use that kind of bridging technology like a Zapier, or is there other more sophisticated programs that you use to help your clients integrate and automate?
So we have used Zapier before.
Mhm.
All of those, they really just depend on what's available.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're brought in just because something like a Zapier or some other middleware doesn't work with
Hmm.
whatever particular software packages they have.
Yeah.
Um, but in kind of, if you look at buy versus build,
Yeah.
yeah, first we're going to go look and see what's on the market. What can we get off the shelf to do this? And if there's nothing available, or if, say, the cost is too prohibitive, then we'll go to building like a custom solution to connect systems together.
That's so great. I love that. I mean, I think for as a small business owner, the dealing with technology, there's always something new, but then you're not also maximizing what you have. And that's what I
Yeah.
find a lot of times is you don't need 10 things. You can have 3 or 4 that you're fully utilizing, and that's a huge cost savings from all of the subscriptions. Um, so tell me about, you were started in Houston. When did you start the New Jersey, you know, location or office?
They were all basically started at the same time,
Okay.
because one of my partners, Kyle, lives in New Jersey.
Okay.
And he has, I think, three of our consultants that live in that area.
Hmm.
Um, and so we've always kind of from the beginning had kind of the North office and the South office. My other partner lives in Houston.
Okay.
We've got people in Utah. We got people in Virginia.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like to say we were remote before remote was cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you were. And I mean, we're remote too. We have people in the office, but then we have most of the people off-site, and it works for most people. So now that you're entering the Canadian marketplace, I'd love to learn about what was the motivation to come to Canada. I know obviously from a personal immigration perspective, but what was the desire to look at the Canadian market when you are in one of the largest markets in the world?
Mhm. Well, it was a good fit for us to expand out of the US just because, and I'm talking specifically about Calgary,
Yeah.
Calgary and Alberta,
Hmm.
which is anyone who's been to both, we could say that Alberta is the Texas of Canada,
Yep.
or, Texas is the Alberta of the US, whichever way you want to look at it. Um, but very similar markets. Obviously, a lot of oil and gas,
Hmm.
and then all the ancillary services around it. And of course, coming out of Houston, a big industry for us is oil and gas. So that was kind of a natural fit.
Hmm.
And between that and then personally, had some family up here, so that
Yeah.
helped out. That would, to make the transition easier. Um, and it was, yeah, basically a reason to bring what we do to another market that was very similar to what we were used to.
That's great. And so I know that you took a lot of time, you looked at the marketplace, you looked at what you could offer, and you looked at who's here and the opportunities to grow. So it's been very early days, I know. What have you been up to since you've been in Calgary?
Out meeting people, have made some great contacts, and actually have deals in the pipeline right now,
Oh,
locally.
fabulous.
No pun intended with the
That's
oil and
awesome.
gas industry. Um, and I think that the relationship between the U.S. company and the Canada company is going to be going, because there's also, skill sets we can pick up here, because, now we're more or less let's call it a multinational in a sense, that we can, we have, people are our business,
Yes.
and our people have very, specialized skills in certain areas, and then general skills in all areas.
Hmm.
And, it's also just another resource pool for us to add to the team. And then we can offer the skill sets of those people cross border,
Yes.
on different projects as it suits, what the client needs are.
So when you have a client deal and you get a new contract, do you work on site? I mean, obviously, after the initial meet and greets and figuring out what they need and the scope of everything, are you on site or is it all done remote?
It's predominantly done remote, but we have some exceptions. We do have some clients that want us to be on site.
Hmm.
And if that's the case, we can accommodate that.
Hmm.
Um, we have clients that are just, kind of, we're partially on site. Like you say, we just go for either initial meetings or statuses. I just got back from Rochester, New York, meeting
Hmm.
with a client last week, doing some planning for the next year. But most of the time we work remote.
Okay.
And just, you and I think are probably both old enough to remember a time when we didn't have cheap video conferencing, and that was a luxury, you know. But now, with Zoom and Teams and all these
Yeah,
other tools, it makes that a lot easier. It makes it practical, really.
definitely. So the reason that you came to my attention was through a network, but also because you were looking to come to Canada. And we were looking, with somebody with your background, education, all of that, and American citizenship at Ackah Law, we were looking at what are the options. And so for you,
Mhm.
with your MBA, we could have tried to fit you into like a NAFTA professional, but then you would need a Canadian employer. And since you are self-employed and you're an entrepreneur, you have a business and partners, the NAFTA intercompany that we did as an executive was the smoothest way. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about that experience so that I get the client experience to share
Mhm.
with our listeners as to what it was like to transfer in quotes and start the business here.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was referred to you by a friend of mine that had transferred here before,
Hmm.
with another company.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got in touch with you. And Ackah was very easy to deal with. We laid out the plan. We laid out the plan to form the subsidiary here,
Mhm.
which we did. You guys handle all of the paperwork for, the transfer and the work permitting and all of that. Speaking of technology, I was pleased to see that you guys leverage that quite well with the systems that you use, so that I could keep track of what the progress of basically the whole deal was.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was very smooth. It couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Thank you. We're so happy. I think the only thing was that little blip that the officer made
Yeah.
an issue with at the airport, and their mistakes. We have to fix sometimes officers' mistakes, but we're working on that. But I was just so happy we could help you get here, get your work permit, get settled, find a place to live, all those things, and then look at how you can expand your business. And so one of
Mhm.
the things we talked about when we met was like how to get connected to the business community. So have you been thinking about like the Chamber of Commerce here, or Calgary Development, Economic Development? Like who have you
Mhm.
been, what organizations have you been tapping into? U of C, like there's so many places for somebody with your background to let people know you're here.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of them off the bat is I'm transitioning to I think it's called TEC here. I was in a networking and,
Yeah,
and
tech
professional
group.
development group called Vistage
Yeah.
in Houston, and so I'm looking for a new chair here with TEC.
Hmm.
That's a good group. Um, and I've gone to a few events around town, networking events that I've seen pop up.
Good.
And then a lot of it is that fortunately I had some connections here before I got here.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to get some really good introductions, which has led to some of the deals that we're working right now. So.
That's so great. I love that we can, try to highlight our clients, because when you come to Canada, even if you have networks, it's still a whole new world. Even if you've been here a lot, it's like you're
Mhm.
almost starting over, your credibility building, and the fact that you know what you're talking about. And so I know that it's not easy for Americans, but then you think about if it was somebody from Hong Kong or somebody
Mhm.
from, like India, just how much harder that is. So have
Mhm.
you had any particular challenges that you feel comfortable sharing around, any transitions, or have people been nice to you as the American that's left the US of A?
You know what? I have no complaints right now.
Good.
I've found, I've been here many times
Yes.
before,
Yeah.
visiting, so I was somewhat familiar with kind of the area and the culture. I mean, the culture is not all that much different,
It is,
Maybe
and
people are a little nicer,
yes, we are. We don't have
in
guns.
some respects. Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, there's just been like few little quirky things here
Yeah.
and there that might be a little bit. I'll tell you, probably the biggest thing is getting used to. Um, to be fair, in Houston, we had a recycling bin and we had our trash
Yes.
bin, but here we have three,
I know.
and
And they're hardcore.
I still get a little confused about what goes. The recycling one's easy. The trash versus the scraps is
I
not quite as
know.
easy,
I know.
know.
Yeah, we're pretty hardcore about this, compared to other places. But I remember I was in Vancouver, which is where my family is. They're hardcore. You can have a small bin for your garbage. They don't even want garbage. So they make you pay if it's over that small little bin. So you have to be very smart
Hmm.
in BC about how they deal with that. But listen, I just want to thank you so much for participating in this podcast. Before I let you go, do you have any advice for other business owners that are looking to leverage technology for business growth? I understand, as you know, the importance of automation and integration, but
Hmm.
overall, how companies adapt and adopt to technology, what advice would you have for some of us?
Well, that can be a really broad question
Hmm.
because different industries have need different technology solutions,
Yeah.
and some of them are more hardware based, some are more software based, some are more office settings, some of them are more industrial. Um, But I think the biggest thing is making sure that you're investing in stuff that is fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Um, and that you have an eye out for, integrating and automating systems. If you can buy one system that does three things and it does them well, do that instead of buying three different things that you have to cobble
Mhm.
together. But then the also be careful of shiny new objects,
Oh, I
that
knew you were going to say
people
that.
dangle out there,
Yeah.
especially in this AI and machine learning and chat GPT world.
Yeah.
There is unfortunately a lot of snake oil out there.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, make sure that your software works with whatever your business process is. Make sure you have a good business process first.
Yes.
Um, and then also realize that if you're bringing in new technology, that the people change is the hardest thing most of the time.
Hmm.
Um, for me, just from doing it for so long in our team, technology is kind of almost easy. The hardest thing to change is a person.
Yes.
And so if you're implementing new systems or bringing in changes, you got to spend some time letting people understand why we're doing things, making sure that they're trained
Hmm.
appropriately and not just thrown into the deep end. Um, and yeah, it's everything should have a reason. It shouldn't just exist just because it's cool.
I
You know.
agree. I think that new shiny object is a real issue for a lot of entrepreneurs. I've spent this year really trying to just not buy anything new if I can help it, because it's easy to just say, look over
Yeah.
there, look over there. Oh my goodness.
Oh, this is going to make my inbox completely clean. You know.
That's never going to happen. And, and I feel like we're always looking for that new tool that's going to make life easier for us. At the end of the day, I think what you offer with Yellow Basket is smart, it's efficient, it's going to lead to cost savings, but it's also about using what you have versus that adding. And quite honestly,
Mhm.
when people think about how many subscriptions they have, how many programs they use, whatever, that they're not even using and paying for.
Runaway cloud expenses.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
yeah.
wake up one day and you've got a $10,000 cloud bill.
Seriously. So I feel like there's real value in this. And that's why I get really excited when I talk to you about technology, because it's important to use it well, or else don't bother having it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really the message that you're sharing with Yellow Basket. So I
Yeah.
want to thank you, Mike Frey, for joining us and participating in our podcast. I really appreciate your opportunity, the opportunity for me to talk to you about your business. And then hopefully we can continue to connect and share with our clients more about what you do, and hopefully grow your Canadian business, your big enterprise in Canada.
That's right. Thank you, Evelyn. I appreciate it. See
Thank
you around.
you. You're great. Thank you so much.